Welcome to Becoming Laron Anthony. I'm your host, Laron Anthony, and this is my life. Disclaimer: Becoming Laron Anthony is a podcast to help others through his shared experiences. This is not an attack for those who share similar experiences through these episode topics. Parental advisory is strongly suggested. Hey y'all, welcome to episode 6, Becoming Safe in Sexuality. This is the last episode for this season, so let's get started. Becoming safe in sexuality means to me is not allowing others to depict who they think that you are. I think it's okay to not to say anything because I feel like at the end of the day, you know who you are, you know what you like. So it really doesn't matter what others say about you. As long as you're comfortable and confident in yourself and in your sexuality, then that's the only thing that matters. I feel like people are constantly going to give their opinions, whether you like it or not. I think it's up to you to decide whether you're going to listen to them or not. I think that it's important to not to give a fuck about what people say about you, because at the end of the day, people really don't know you like that. So I feel like they're only looking at what's being out instead of what's inwardly. I think that people kind of make assumptions based upon what they think and what they want to perceive. I also feel like people make sexuality into a bigger issue than it really needs to be. Sexuality is not that deep. I think people are constantly trying to look at something that's not necessarily there. I think we as people, we spend so much time focusing on what that person is doing instead of focusing on ourselves. But then again, it shows that a lot of people are not secure with themselves, because it shows that a lot of people have a lot of insecurities and they project their insecurities onto someone else, which causes them to question their own sexuality. I just believe that sexuality shouldn't be a conversation to have, nor should someone assume someone else's sexuality, because I feel like assuming someone else's sexuality is very dangerous. And the real reason why I think that is dangerous because you don't know if that person is truly struggling with their identity when it comes to their own sexuality. I think by inflicting that much pressure and pain into someone, I think that's a very dangerous thing to do, because you don't know what that person is going through. You don't know what they're fighting against or battling against. And I think that people need to be more compassionate or more empathetic when it comes to people that's out there that are struggling with their sexuality, or even people that's not struggling with their sexuality but are constantly being labeled for whatever that people are associating them with. I think people need to stop associating someone else's sexuality, because you don't know if they're constantly, being traumatized because of it. I think a lot of people suffer in silence, and I think the constant assuming of what they think that person's sexuality is, I think that can get very tiresome, and it can also get very exhausting and overwhelming, and it can also drive a person completely insane, to be honest, because I think a lot of people don't show enough empathy, or not just being empathetic, but also being conscious about how they use their words. I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of people get their feelings hurt, because sometimes people don't have tough skin. And that's okay not to have. A lot of people are very sensual. I know I'm a very sensual person, but I think a lot of people need to realize that, you have to choose your words wisely and know that your words have power. But I feel like a lot of people need to stop giving power to what people say about them, and not allowing others to define who they are as a person. I just feel like people need to accept people for who they are. And I feel like people just need to be more empathetic, be more kind. Because I come to realize that people are doing the best that they can with what they got. I just think that people shouldn't judge a book by its cover. We as people, I think we spend so much time trying to identify a person, but I think that we lack not trying to want to get to know the person. I think it's important to build connections with people instead of assuming what they are. I remember growing up, people constantly thought that I was queer. And to be honest, I didn't know what queer was until I actually experienced it, or actually seeing people that are queer And I always felt like an outsider. I always felt outcasted throughout my whole life. I never fully felt belonging. I never fully felt that I completely fit in. You guys know that what I tell you guys, that I often struggle with trying to be a part of the boys club, quote unquote. But I always felt like an outsider, and I remember constantly being told that, people thought I was gay. And I definitely had a hard time with that because, I never assumed that I was. I never thought that was something that I wanted to be, that just wasn't in me. But people naturally thought that I was, I guess, because they perceived that I was. And that was something that I struggled with. Sometimes I still struggle with, but I'm better at it now. I'm now allowing it to get to define me, or not allowing it to bother me so much as it used to. But I remember hearing that throughout my whole life, especially in high school. I remember one time when this dude called me gay, and I remember my best friend defended me. Of course, he never had the nerves to say it to my face, which is funny because I don't get why people constantly want to talk about somebody, but they never had the balls to say it to their face. But, that just shows that he was a coward amongst other people that assumed that I was, but never fully said it to my face. But anyway, my best friend, she stuck up for me. And I think for me, having her to do that was the best thing for me. But then I feel like at the time it wasn't, because it shows that that I was a coward myself. I felt like the helpless little victim. But I feel like I'm no longer the helpless little victim anymore because, for one, I'm ready to fully stand up for myself. And I feel like creating this episode is important for me to do because I feel like at the end of the day, people don't get to define what my sexuality is, because I do. And I feel like I don't have to explain myself to nobody, because at the end of the day, I'm comfortable in myself. I'm comfortable in my sexuality. And I don't have to explain myself to no one, because I feel like it's nobody's business. And I feel like it doesn't concern them, nor is it required for them to fully understand me, because at the end of the day, people are going to assume whatever they're going to assume, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to change that person's perspective. I'm not going to change what I want them to perceive me as, because at the end of the day, I really don't give a fuck, because at the end of the day, those people don't fucking matter, and to be honest, they are fucking shit, because I feel like at the end of the day, they're full of shit, because it just shows that you're not fully comfortable and confident in yourself, and you have the audacity to put that onto me, and that's not fucking cool, and that's not fucking right. So I feel like at the end of the day, people are going to assume whatever they want to, let them, because at the end of the day, they're naysayers. They're the one that are not really doing nothing with their fucking life. So I feel like at the end of the day, people can assume whatever they want. They can say all that other shit, because at the end of the day, I know who I am, and that's just that. But on the other hand, I do feel like we as people need to stop explaining ourselves to people. And I also feel like people need to stop trying to find something that's not necessarily there. And I feel like people need to stop commenting on someone when they have no fucking clue, or no fucking, when they don't have no fucking answer when it comes to themselves. I think people need to stop doing that shit, because at the end of the day, people are not asking for your validation. People are not seeking for it. People are not trying to ask you, hey, so what do you think I am? At the end of the day, people really didn't fucking ask you. So I feel like people need to stop commenting on shit when they don't fucking have no clue about it whatsoever. And I also feel like we don't need to broadcast it when it comes to social media. I feel like putting stuff out there when it comes to sexuality, or when it comes to like stuff that kind of expose yourself in a sexual way, I think that it shouldn't be out there when it comes to social media, because I feel like at the end of the day, it's none of their business. So why post something when you feel like anybody and everybody's going to comment on something that you did not necessarily want them to comment on? You know what I mean? I think people kind of open that invitation up for people to kind of invite them into their world. But I feel like if you don't want certain people to see certain stuff that you post, then don't post it at all. Because I remember a time where I was constantly being associated with queer. And I remember that it got to the point where I just got sick and tired of the shit that I went onto Facebook and I made a comment. Well, not a comment. I made a post about it saying, hey, like, I'm tired of y'all calling me gay. It's bothering me. Can y'all let that shit be? Like, let that shit go. Like, that's not who I am. In a discussion, point blank, period. And a lot of people did comment on it. Most of it was very supportive. Most of them was like, there wasn't no need for you to say all that, because at the end of the day, if you know who you are, then there's no need for you to explain yourself. And at the time, I really didn't get that. I really didn't fully understand it. But now I do, because I feel like at the end of the day, I don't have to explain myself to people. And I think that people kind of expect for you to explain yourself, because I feel like at the end of the day, people are constantly giving out their opinions when I feel like their opinions is not required, nor is not desired, nor that is needed. So I feel like at the end of the day, I feel like now I'm fully able to kind of, speak up. But I feel like I'm doing it in my own way and not really giving a fuck about what people say, because at the end of the day, they're not in my shoes. They're not living my life. And at the end of the day, I don't have to explain my sexuality to nobody, because at the end of the day, I know who I am. I know what I like. I know who I'm attracted to. And I don't have to explain that, because I feel like at the end of the day, we as people, we don't have to explain ourselves to people. We don't have to explain to who we're attracted to, who we are with, who we're laying down, or who makes us happy sexually or romantically, whatever. At the end of the day, we're attracted to whoever we're attracted to. And that's okay. And I think that people need to get that and understand that. And I feel like people need to, get in their own place. But I do feel like people need to realize that there are boundaries and there are things that you shouldn't cross. And I feel like for me, when people constantly kept assuming my sexuality, I felt like they crossed a line. And I felt like that was something that I needed to do. I needed to defend myself. And that was my way of defending myself. That was my way of a call to action. I needed to speak up for myself, because I got tired of people speaking up for me, and I just had enough with it. But I think that people really need to educate themselves when it comes to sexuality. But I feel like they need to do it where it's in a respectful way, because I feel like not a lot of people are not going to explain themselves when it comes to sexuality, and that's okay. But I feel like the ones that are struggling with their sexuality, I feel like those are the ones that they need to show more empathy and be more empathetic. And I feel like allow that person to be seen and to be heard and to be valued. But most importantly, they need to be loved. And I also think that, too, that we live in a sexualized society, in a sexual world. And I think a lot of people kind of view each other as sexual beings. But I feel like we need to look at each other as human beings, because I feel like that's how we build connections with somebody. I think that we constantly focus on sex. And I know that sex sells, but I feel like sex shouldn't be all that we are. And I think that sexuality shouldn't be a conversation to have, nor should it be something that needs to be required or something that needs to be identified. I think people just need to stop looking at each other as sexual creatures and just start to build connections with somebody and get to know them for who they really are. Thank you guys for tuning in to tonight's episode. I greatly appreciate all of you. Thank you guys for your continuous support and love that I've been receiving regarding this podcast of becoming Laron Anthony. It hasn't been easy putting myself out there by telling you guys my opinions and talking about these different topics that I've been discussing throughout this season. But it's been very rewarding, very fulfilling, and I thank you guys for tuning in. And I can't wait for you guys to see what's in store for next season. Bye, y'all.